1 minute. 1 minute. Okay, when we see our not that logo. Yeah, I'll give you a count. Some of these days I'll synchronize these clocks. Okay, stand by, Ted. We're coming to you in 10 seconds. Good evening and welcome to our audience here in Chambers and for those of you that are watching at home. I'm Ted Owens, a board member of the Truckee Chamber of Commerce, and I will be your moderator this evening. This is the second of two candidate forums being sponsored by the Contractors Association of Truckee Tahoe PAC, by the Tahoe Sierra Board of Realtors, and by the Truckee Chamber of Commerce. These forums are made possible with the generous cooperation of our media partners, Moonshine Inc. and the Sierra Sun. Tonight's forum is being televised on Tahoe Truckee Media channels 18 and 118 and live streaming at tahoetruckeemedia.org. We are conducting a poll tonight, simply asking viewers if these forums have helped to inform you of your voting decisions. You may enter the poll answer yes or no on the YouTube page if you are watching online, or you may text yes or no to 530-412-3719. That's 530-412-3719. The opinions expressed on this program are solely those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the positions of Tahoe Truckee Media, the program sponsors, or the town of Truckee. Tonight's questions have been submitted by the community and vetted by a committee, including TTM, Moonshine Inc., and the Sierra Sun. The live audience also had an opportunity to submit questions prior to the broadcast. Questions submitted may not be asked verbatim, and questions asked may have been compiled and edited from several submissions. Asking the questions this evening will be Lainey Griffo of the Sierra Sun and Mayumi Peacock of Moonshine Inc. Tonight, we will be featuring candidates for the boards of the Truckee Sanitary District, the Tahoe Forest Hospital District, and the Truckee Town Council. The speaking order tonight will begin with a candidate chosen by a random number generator, and the format is as follows. Each candidate will have 1 minute to make an opening statement. Next, the candidates will be asked questions by Lainey Griffo or Mayumi Peacock. I still am not used to that, Mayumi. All candidates will have the opportunity to answer each question, and answers should be no more than 1 minute in length. And I apologize to you in advance if I must interrupt you because your time has expired, but it is my job. To the audience, please hold any applause until the end of the segment. And following questions and answer period, each candidate will have 2 minutes for a closing statement. Tonight's timekeeper is the Chamber of Commerce new CEO, Jessica Penman. Jessica, welcome. And we will begin. First, the Truckee Sanitary District, in this election, there are 3 open seats, so voters may choose up to 3 candidates. One candidate, Marcus Waters, could not be here tonight. He has submitted this brief video, which we will now watch. Are we queued up?
No, he is not.
He has not submitted it. We will not now watch that. Okay. We're live. Okay. We will now begin with opening statements, and Mr. Fay, we will begin with you. You will be starting, and you have 1 minute to make your introductory statement. Please proceed.
Thank you, Ted. Thank you to our sponsors. My name is Phil Fay.
Microphone.
Thank you, Ted, and thank you to our sponsors. My name is Phil Fay, and I've called Truckee home since 2007. With my wife, Sarah, we've raised our 14-year-old daughter here, Lily, and we own and operate a small business with 13 employees. I'm running for Truckee Sanitary District because I wish to bring my experience in wastewater, project management, and health and safety for the greater public interest. Several years working in wastewater and 15 years in project management in oil and gas gives me a background to best represent this community. My vision for TSD is to consolidate local resources across agencies to reduce overhead and save local taxpayers money, and take a proactive stance in the oversight of TTSA, an agency that is only accountable to the people of Truckee.
My apologies, Mr. Fay, but your time has expired.
Thank you.
Mr. Gilmore.
Good evening. Good evening. I'm a 44-year resident and an incumbent seeking re-election to the Truckee Sanitary District Board of Directors. I've never felt entitled to this position, but thankful for your support and committed to be worthy of your trust. I'm known to be invested in my position on the board and coming to meetings prepared and ready to ask questions and participate in discussions on the agenda items. As a plumbing contractor, I've had the unique perspective to be able to advise staff and management on proposed ordinances that could have unintended consequences, or conversely, offer ideas of improved ordinances or services for our ratepayers. We have a great district with statewide respect. In fact, we often have other districts contacting us for advice. We are top-notch and determined to maintain that reputation.
Mr. Van Gundy.
I was delighted when I moved to Truckee in 1981, and I love living here in this wonderful community. I strongly believe in putting some back, so I volunteered in a wide variety of local organizations. I've worked in the Rotary Club of Truckee since '83, and I served on the board and as president. I've also served as a member of the Truckee Donner PUD Board, the Tala Sierra Board of Realtors, and the past 11 years as a board member of the Truckee Sanitary District. I've also served as president of each of these groups. The Truckee Sanitary District is a major and award-winning contributor to the well-being of this town, and I'm proud to be part of its success. I'd appreciate your support.
Thank you, and that brings us to our question and answer portion of the forum. Remember to please keep your answers to 1 minute or less, and Mr. Gilmore will answer the first question.
On? It is on now. All right. Good evening. Let's try that again. I wanted to first start with a thank you to all the citizens who submitted questions to the media. They were insightful and very helpful, and it is always inspiring to see voters get engaged. All right, so we're going to go into our first question, and this one is a little bit of a doozy, so I'm going to take it slow. The district's connection fee remained steady for nearly 40 years at $750. Last year, that rate went up to $1,400, and the board just approved another increase to $1,650. One big justification for the proposed increase, or for the increase, is that growth pays for growth. What are your thoughts on these recent increases? And in your mind, what role should this district have, if any, in mitigating growth in the region?
Mitigating growth certainly is not going to be handled by the TSD. We provide service. It's the town council, it's the planning department that mitigates growth. We did not have a rate increase since 1987 until that most recent one, and it was as a result of a rate study that we did to figure out what was coming in the future and where we were on it. We found we were lagging a little bit behind, and that's why we brought it up. The same thing happened This last year, a few things have really increased, and we are reacting to that. We don't want to be stuck at the last minute with a very large assessment. When we did our increases, especially the service fees, we did them in a step procedure. It's like $1.97 a month difference to make up the difference.
Thank you, Mr. Gilmore. Mr. Van Gundy.
Yes. Yes, I will add to Jerry's comment that we also modified the fees to encourage accessory dwelling units, ADUs, because we have great hopes that that will help solve our serious housing problem in this town. It's interesting because the sanitary district is not a major cost of living here. But as has already been said, the sanitary district had not updated fees in nearly 40 years. We thought it was time.
Thank you, Mr. Van Gundy. Mr. Fay.
Thank you. The costs for annual costs are $561, and historically, both TTSA and TSD have kept rates very low, and they have not. In my opinion, I think they should have increased rates gradually over a greater period of time, rather than keeping the rates steady for 10, 12, 15 years. And the costs for connection with both TTSA and TSD, when you combine them together, it's $2,330 plus $2.16 per square foot, which accumulatively really does add up. The one thing I will say that TSD, I think, has done very smart now is that they have linked the connection fee, the yearly fees to the construction index.
Sorry, Mr. Fay, but time has expired.
Thank you.
My apologies. Question number 2, we will begin with Mr. Van Gundy.
Okay.
All right, you guys have started going down this road, but when the new connection fees were put in place last year, the district held long discussions with the Mountain Housing Council, CAT, and others, eventually leading to the adoption of a scaled rate, meaning an 800 square foot apartment is not charged the same as a Martis Valley 8,000 square foot home. So what other ways can the district seek to address the growing challenge for middle income earners to afford to live and work here, including the district's employees?
I think we've done what we can do pretty much with the rate changes we've put in, and as you said, it's scaled now, so that the smaller the house, the less expensive it is for sanitary arrangements. Okay?
Thank you, Mr. Fay.
Van Gundy. That was Mr. Van Gundy. Oh, sorry.
You're up next.
Oh. Yeah, I do think the way that the rate is scaled is actually fair, and it incentivizes people to build smaller properties because it's also based on a square foot. What I would like to see is greater use of agency resources across the 2 districts that we have in Truckee for the sewer. And with it being linked to the construction index, the rates, then as the construction index increases, the rates will also increase.
Thank you. Mr. Gilmore.
The rates are obviously based on studies, and they're based on what our costs are and what our future costs will be. To directly address the affordability issue, which is everybody's problem because the majority of our workers do not live locally. But I moved here 44 years ago. There was Sierra Meadows, Glenshire, Ponderosa, Prosser Lakeview, all of it basically middle housing. Tahoe Donner came in, which is up. Since the time I've been here, all we've done is build gated communities and subsidized housing for lower income. I think the real answer is in planning and making it attractive for developers to come in and build truly middle-income housing, not continue the road we've gone down.
Thank you. Next question, and we will begin with Mr. Fay.
While TSD provides sewer service to much of the Truckee community, there are still areas served primarily by on-site septic systems. What is your stance regarding the need to convert these areas to the public sewer?
That's a very good question. The wastewater infrastructure earmarked $650 million for wastewater projects. I would think that TSD should be looking at ways to get some of that money, and it was specifically earmarked for septic tanks, to get people off septic tanks and onto the mains. And I think that's what we should be looking at using.
Thank you. Mr. Gilmore.
As I said before, TSD does not approve plans. TSD does not demand people connect to us. Sierra Meadows is a good example. We have run several surveys there. A majority of those people have to want to be converted for us to start working to provide the service. In every case, it's been 49 to 51 or something like that, and the 51 said, no, we don't want it yet. We don't impose our service. We readily provide it when it's available.
Thank you. Mr. Van Gundy.
Jerry said it quite well. We continually are in conversation with those people who are on septic systems, but so far it's basically too expensive for them, or they feel that it's too expensive for them, and we've accessed several areas in the last 6 years in Sierra Meadows, but there's still a sizable number of septic systems out there, and until there's adequate financing to do that, I expect those people will not cooperate.
Thank you. Next question.
What is TSD's oversight role for the Tahoe Truckee Sanitation Agency? And could you comment on the increase in discharge violations at TTSA over the last few years?
We will begin with Mr. Gilmore.
Our board works on TSD. Our board does not work or control TTSA. We have one member from our agency that is a board member at TTSA. That means our agency and our board member have a 20% or 1/5 comment on what's going on. Some of these violations have been attributed to a past manager who is not there anymore. There is also some maintenance issues that had been going on that had not been addressed. So I can't speak for TTSA, I speak for TSD.
Mr. Van Gundy.
I agree with what Jerry said. We are 20%, we provide 20% of the leadership there, and they're in a change of leadership now. They're actually interviewing. There's a temporary manager, but they're interviewing for a permanent manager, and we have great hopes that that will improve the situation at TTSA.
Mr. Fay.
I'd just like to correct Jerry and Mr. Van Gundy. TSD actually has a 25% oversight of TTSA, simply because Alpine Meadows and Olympic Valley equally share 12.5%. So with that being said, I think it's been a monumental failure at TTSA. We have a $144 million infrastructure that needs to be implemented over the next 25 years, and TSD, in its oversight, has failed over a very long period of time. These problems didn't just occur overnight. It has been decades in the making.
Thank you. Next question.
If I may make a quick public service announcement, this is by request of the whole entire wastewater community. They said to protect your pipes, don't put flushable wipes or fats and oils down the drain. Just don't do it. I'm going to go with this one. Property tax bills for district customers show line items from TSD and TTSA, and both agencies also directly bill customers. How can TSD make more clear to customers why there are seemingly so many bills for wastewater?
And we will begin with Mr. Van Gundy.
That's a very interesting question. We talk about it on a regular basis at our board meetings and staff meetings. And so far, we're doing what we know how to do to approach that.
Thank you. Mr. Fay.
I think the answer is in consolidation of assets, consolidation of personnel, and there would be substantial savings in administration, human resources, maintenance possibly, safety. There would be, I think, in manpower alone, there would be a lot of savings.
Thank you. I think we have time for one more question. Oh, I'm sorry. My apologies. Mr. Gilmore.
Thank
Sorry.
you, Ted. I couldn't disagree more with what Phil just said. That's his opinion. And in my closing remarks, I will address that a little better. There are many combined systems throughout the country that are both collection and treatment, and you get one big bill. Okay, in Truckee, we have a wastewater treatment plant, and we have 5 member agencies that do collection only. And so you get 2 little bills that make one big bill, and basically it comes out the same.
Thank you, and my apologies, Mr. Gilmore.
You did that on purpose.
No, I did not, but we no longer have time for an additional question. So each candidate will now have 2 minutes for closing statements, and Mr. Gilmore, I think we'll just begin with you.
Thank you, Ted. I have to read this. I only have 2 minutes. TSD is a member of the California Special Districts Associations. The CSDA is comprised of 6 geographical networks and represents special districts at the state and federal levels. We are in the Sierra Network, and I was re-elected as one of the 3 members representing this network. This gives us an active association with special districts statewide. We use resources like this to maintain our position as, quote, best of the best award winner. We have a superb record. In fact, this last year we had no spills. Where we have had spills, they've been limited, and they've usually been for cause, due to our proactive TV and cleaning schedules. But I'd like to address this race. Our opponent has proposed an idea in this campaign regarding the consolidation of districts. A reference was made to a 2004 grand jury report that suggested looking into that viability. A later report in 2018 by LAFCO in their Municipal Services Review stated, quote, no opportunities for shared facilities were identified between TTSA and TSD. Consolidation is not a new idea and has been rejected by our community, certainly the big one, shortly after our incorporation. Our opponent proposes drastic changes in this. It's not a new idea. We have great services from our special districts, the fire department, the public utility district, the rec and park district, and of course TSD, to name a few. There's an old saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Our board constantly works with our management to keep TSD on the cutting edge to protect the health, safety, and environment for our community. And I sincerely hope you will reelect me and continue my commitment to protect the interests
Apologies, but time has expired.
of our ratepayers.
You're testing me. Mr. Van Gundy.
TSD does one of the most important jobs in Truckee, collecting and dispatching sewage to TTSA. The district does this in a very clean fashion and keeps not only the Truckee River but all the lakes and streams pure and clean. TSD continues to win awards regionally and statewide for its successful performance. I'm a great believer in, as Jerry said, if it ain't broke, don't change it.
Thank you.
Appreciate your support.
Mr. Fay.
I commend the current TSD board for their decades-long service to the community, but believe it is time for a fresh perspective. I'm ready to put my best foot forward to serve the Truckee community in the challenges relating to wastewater. TSD contributes over 70% of the TTSA accounts, yet only has a 25% vote. There is an imbalance in representation, and I believe efficiencies can be realized with the consolidation of TSD and TTSA, agencies that operate less than 2 miles apart. To me, it is nonsensical that a town of only 17,000 residents be burdened with 2 sewer districts, 2 connection fees, double user fees. There is also significant savings to be made on a single accounting department, engineering department, safety department, and legal counsel. Truckee Sanitary District has turned a blind eye and allowed TTSA to fail. The TTSA master plan suggests our current wastewater treatment facilities are in dire need of updating and repair. Over a 25-year period, Truckee residents will need to fund a $144 million update to the wastewater facilities. That is an estimate based on last year's dollar value. To put that into perspective, that's just over 25 years of the entire revenue of TTSA. I would like to see people elected to the public, from the public, to oversee that spending, not unelected, appointed nominees. The current wastewater treatment plant is operating under a discharge permit issued in 2001. Environmental discharge requirements will likely become more stringent. Please support me with your vote, and for more information, visit fayfortsd.com.
Thank you. On behalf of the sponsors and the folks that are participating this evening, I'd like to thank the candidates. This is not an easy thing to do. You did very well, so thank you very much. Let's give them a round of applause. And again, the Truckee Sanitation District has 3 open seats, and there are 4 candidates on your ballot, and you may vote for up to 3 candidates. We'll take a 5-minute break, and then we will hear from candidates for the Tahoe Forest Hospital District. Thank you. Welcome back. We will now have two candidates for the two-year seat on the Tahoe Forest Hospital District Board. There are also three open four-year seats on the ballot, but the incumbents in those seats are running unopposed. Before we begin, I would like again to announce that we are conducting a poll tonight, simply asking viewers if these forums have helped inform your voting decisions. You may enter your poll answer yes or no on the YouTube page if you are watching online, or you may text yes or no to 530-412-3719. Beginning our session, again, chosen randomly, each candidate has an opportunity for a 1-minute open, and we will begin first with Cindy Basso.
Thank you, Ted, and all the sponsors. Thank you, Ted, and all the sponsors. I'd like to take my minute to talk a little bit about my qualifications, and at the close, talk about why I'm running and what I think I can bring to the board. I've had 3 careers in my life. I'm a trained accountant, having worked for 2 of the Big 4 accounting firms. I then spent 20 years creating medical programs in the developing world. I've worked in 7 countries. I've worked with governments, ministers of health, hospital administrations, and medical personnel. During that time, I spent 20 years on the board, 10 years as chair. After that, I became a tax accountant. I'm currently practicing part-time, so I have time to spend if I'm elected to the board. I spent 9 years as a board of trustee at the University of San Diego and 5 years at Lazarus Cancer Foundation on their board of trustees. So I'm very familiar with board governance and financial responsibility, and I hope you elect me in November. Thank you.
And now speaking for 1 minute is Mr. Robert Barnett.
I'm going to set my timer here.
Microphone.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Oops. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Bob Barnett. I've had a strong interest in healthcare since age 12 when my father developed a preventable illness and became disabled. This interest led me to a medical legal practice that covered 40 years, and I represented over 6,000 disabled or injured clients. My daily law practice covered topics that arise in board decisions: litigation, governance, insurance, regulatory matters, medical records, standard of care. I have an in-depth understanding of patient issues, the challenges of medical practice, and the complexity of running a hospital. I owned and managed a professional law practice over many decades of changing rules and changing economies, which helps me understand the challenge of long-term financial sustainability. As a former ski patrolman, mountain sport enthusiast, and 3 generations of my families using the hospital, I want us to have an excellent hospital. That's why I wish to continue as director of Tahoe Forest Hospital.
Thank you, and now we will proceed with the first question, and Mr. Barnett, you will answer first.
Thank you, Ted. And I just want to take a moment to say thank you to Ted, our fearless moderator, with his calming voice, twinkling wit, and willingness to cut off anybody.
Or forget them.
And also, I thought it would be good just to mention for everybody out there and here tonight that there are 4-year seats that are not contested. And in light of the questions that we have prepared, boy, you got lucky. So I'm looking at you, Dale, Mary, and Michael. All right, first question. Patient visits have skyrocketed in recent years at the district from approximately 45,000 in fiscal year 2014 to over 110,000 last year. Patient satisfaction continues to be highly rated. What are the key safeguards the board should focus on to continue to best serve all patients in the community as numbers increase?
We've been in a growth spurt
Microphone.
for the last 7 years.
Microphone.
Whoops.
There you go.
We've been in a growth spurt for the last 7 years, and our infrastructure has been taxed to the limit because of that. So we have to start with getting additional space so we can get the additional medical staff that need. We need to be able to sustain the people that we have and deal with issues like burnout. We need to work on our recruiting. We need to work on our scheduling. These are our challenges going forward.
Thank you. Ms. Basso.
I don't disagree with anything that Bob said. I think that growth and cost are the 2 biggest challenges for the hospital, and I think that the community is going to continue to grow and that we have to look at both space and personnel issues, and I think those are the biggest challenges.
Thank you. Question number 2, and this time we will begin with Ms. Basso.
All right, we're going to flip the lens the other way. At the August 25th board meeting, the TFH board heard a lot about employee burnout. According to Dr. Gray, the district's chief medical officer, primary care doctors and APPs, advanced practice providers, are experiencing disproportionately high levels of burnout in the hospital system. Several staff members at the meeting emphasized that 99% of health systems are doing better than we are with regards to burnout, according to survey results. And Dr. Gray emphasized that this is a systemic issue, not one at the individual level. So what are your ideas for how the hospital system can address this system-wide issue?
So I think that the question before, you talked about patient satisfaction being very high, which I think is excellent. It's very worrisome that the staff is burnt out, and I think that we can't disregard COVID. I mean, I think it was terribly hard on the personnel. I'd be curious to know if pre-COVID what their burnout rate was or how unsatisfied they were. I think that the hospital is working hard on those issues, and I think the most important people to talk to would be the medical staff and ask them what they think could be done to help with their satisfaction issues.
Thank you. Mr. Barnett.
It's hard to cover this in 1 minute. There's a lot of depth to it. But I will say this. If you look at the history of burnout, we have a change in our medical system over the last 40 years. And what the doctors tell me is that their loss of autonomy is one of their single greatest things that lead them to a sense of burnout. Burnout is basically where doctors want to practice medicine, but there's all these other things they've got to do that interfere with that, so they're only spending 50% of their time practicing medicine, 50% on things like administrative duty, documentation, electronic frustration, limitations of insurance companies. So what are the fixes? There's two. The first is personal resources. We have to have confidential mental health access for our staff, and we have to have support groups. More importantly, though, and what the board can do is on systemic change. There we need a collaborative model that's not top-down but bottom-up. A partnership between the administration and the providers so we can identify
My
problems and
apologies, but
solutions.
time has expired. Question number 3.
The hospital is one of the largest employers in the Tahoe Truckee community and part of the Truckee Tahoe Workforce Housing Agency, JPA. Yet nearly 40% of the hospital's employees are commuting in from out of the district. And it's likely this will increase as current employees retire. What can the district do to foster locals serving locals at the hospital?
Mr. Barnett.
It's a widespread problem. The hospital isn't the only one with that problem, but here's what we do. First of all, we partner with a Truckee Tahoe Workforce Housing Agency, and we are looking at creative ways to help the people coming in with financing and looking at creative solutions that will allow the people that we are recruiting to come in and buy homes with upfront payments to them that will allow them to have a down payment that will allow them to come in so we can more effectively recruit. And this is not a simple problem with a simple solution, but those are the kinds of things that we have to do to make it work.
Thank you. Ms. Basso.
I think that incentives are going to be imperative for not just doctors, but for medical staff and nurses. And I think that things like offering lower market rates, interest rates are possibilities, maybe, creating housing for staff. But as Bob said, this is a problem for every industry in our town.
Thank you. Question number 4.
So keeping a keen eye on the local hospital system, what lessons were learned from the pandemic?
We'll begin with Ms. Basso.
Sorry, you said keeping a keen eye?
On the local hospital district and system.
So I would say that I think that the hospital did an excellent job during COVID. I think it was, a pandemic that no one expected. I think we have learned from the pandemic, and I don't think it's going to be the last one. And I think it's important that we take those lessons and we extrapolate them over time because I think it will happen again.
Thank you. Mr. Barnett.
Well, on the people side of it, one of the things we learned is how much the staff care about each other and how nurturing they were to each other. And when you're in a situation where people are getting sick all around you and you're sacrificing your personal life to be able to take care of the patients. It's a tremendous stressor. And the hospital people came together and have helped each other. That's one lesson. To build on that for the future, and that's one of the approaches to taking care of the burnout, and that's one of the things I'm committed to keep working on until we've got it solved.
Thank you. Next question, and we will begin with Mr. Barnett.
Well, you guys get an extra question. So this question has to be asked of any representative of a healthcare system. In your mind, what is health?
Well, health to me is a combination of physical and mental wellness. I've spent my life looking at this issue because at 12 years old, when my father became disabled, I got to see what life is like if you're disabled. And I've spent my life helping people. And my sense of it is that it's a commitment to a lifestyle. And one of the things we want to do at the hospital is reach out and look at health and not just repairing people.
Thank you. Ms. Basso.
I think that our community is the definition of a healthy community in terms of the activities that we all participate in. I think that the hospital offers some great preventive health organizations. I hear on the radio about Pilates class, different yoga classes that are offered. And I think that with the mental health issue, the new center that's being opened, we have to address it from children down to adults. Mental health is imperative. So I think that both of those, but I think our community does a very good job in that area.
Thank you. And we're running right on time, so we will proceed to your 2-minute summarization, and we will begin with Mr. Barnett.
Thank you. In my summary, I just want to tell you how I can be of value to the hospital. I first would point to my direct experience with Tahoe Forest Hospital. I worked on the new strategic plan, which is to help address the growth problems we've been talking about. Worked on the board mission, vision, and values, and I helped write the decorum and civility rules for board meetings. Also, I would point to my healthcare background. I was a volunteer ski patrolman for 10 years as a first responder. I would point to my medical legal work. All my clients had medical treatment. I've read thousands of pages of medical records. I've interviewed hundreds of doctors. I've hired experts, and I've cross-examined medical legal experts, and I know how to ask the hard questions. I also have business experience. I owned and managed a small professional business for 40 years in a changing economy with changing rules. I also have a local connection. I was on the board at the Squaw Valley Mutual Water Company. I was on the board of Incorporated Olympic Valley, where we went through a venture with LAFCO to do what Truckee did. 3 generations of my family have used the hospital, so I have a personal stake in it. So, in summary, I have experience on the board in healthcare and private business in the local community, and I'm a seasoned decision maker in the medical legal field. So I can bring this to the board, and I want to build on my board experience to make Tahoe Forest Hospital the best.
Thank you, Mr. Barnett. Ms. Basso.
So I'd like to talk a little bit about why I'm running. So I have a strong sense of community, and this is something that was instilled in me. I've been doing volunteer work from high school, college, post-career, raising children. And I volunteer here at the emergency warming shelter working with the unhoused, and I'm spearheading a new program called the Truckee Collaborative Program between the Nevada DA's office and the PD's office here. So when I saw the board position opened, I thought, based on my hospital experience and working with medical facilities, this is another great way to give back in the community. I think we have an excellent hospital and a strong executive team. I think what I bring is new ideas and fresh energy to the board if elected. It's an elected position, which means that you're representing the community. I feel like I'm approachable and accessible. I'm not looking to join the board to rubber stamp. I want to challenge and encourage the executive team to be the best they can be and continue on the vision of making Tahoe Forest Health District one of the best rural mountain districts in the nation. I hope that you vote Cindy Basso. If you'd like more information, you can check out my website, Vote for Cindy Basso, and that's the number 4. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'd like to thank you both for participating this evening. I was a little nervous. You're both attorneys. I was wondering if you were going to cross-examine the questioner or do something out of the ordinary, but let's give them a round of applause.
Same to you,
And
Cindy.
thank you. We will take a 5-minute break now to reset the dais, and we will return with candidates for the Truckee Town Council. We now turn to candidates for the Truckee Town Council, but before we do, we are conducting a poll tonight, simply asking viewers if these forums have helped inform your voting decisions. You may answer your poll question yes or no on the YouTube page if you are watching online, or you may text yes or no to 530-412-3719. In this election, there are 3 open seats for the Truckee Town Council, and 4 candidates are running. Voters may choose up to 3 candidates. And as with all of the other segments, the order of questioning and opening statements is random. We will move to opening statements. You will have 1 minute to make your introductory statement, and Mr. Pallavi, you will go first.
Thanks, Ted. Thanks, everybody, for being here. My name is David Pallavi, and I'm running to be re-elected to my second full term on the Truckee Town Council. My experience on Town Council the past 4 years, coupled with successfully leading this community through the COVID pandemic as your mayor, has given me the experience necessary to lead for another 4 years. Truckee is an amazing place, and from the moment I arrived, I knew Truckee would be home. I've lived here since 2001, and as a local business owner, elected representative to the council, past appointed representative to the Planning Commission, and passionate community volunteer, I understand the challenges and opportunities our town faces. For the last 4 years, I've been the only council member that faces the very challenges we are tasked with solving on a daily basis. I am the only, I have a weekly payroll ensuring my staff has reasonably priced and adequate housing, and I am the only one to apply for, navigate, and receive 2 building permits in the last 4 years.
My apologies, but time has
jeez.
expired.
That went
So sorry.
way too fast. Okay.
Ms. Tarnay.
Hi, my name is Susie Tarnay, and I want to thank you for this opportunity to talk about subjects that I just love talking about. I've been on the Planning Commission for 4 years now, and I love it so much that in that time I've only missed 1 meeting. I've recently had a couple accomplishments I want to throw out there. I gained approval from the Joint Council and Commission to get 2 new policies added to the general plan. One was for protected bike lanes for the safety of our students, and one was for street trees for climate mitigation. Both of these were moved to the list to be addressed in the short term, which is just awesome. I've been a driving force to move in favor of vehicle miles traveled so that we can invest our fees in all methods of transportation. I've also, as a citizen activist, was instrumental in preserving mature fire-resistant trees during a town vegetation management project. So I've accomplished a lot without even being on the council, but it's not really about me. It's about what we can do together. If you share my vision of a sustainable community, then vote for Susie.
Thank you. Mr. Zabriskie.
When my wife and I moved to Truckee 11 years ago, we made friends with people who are active in community affairs. We became involved too. I started by volunteering as a lawyer with the Family Resource Center, helping low-income residents struggling to keep their homes. Now, as a council member, I advocate for public policies and funding to provide workforce housing across a broader spectrum. When I started volunteering with the Watershed Council, I discovered how deeply our community cares about our environment. As a former botanist and conservation activist, I am inspired by our community's commitment, and I continue seeking ways to preserve and protect our natural heritage. My public service as a planning commissioner, member of the town's General Plan Advisory Committee, and town council member have prepared me to continue working to make our communities safer and stronger. I ask for your vote to continue down this path.
Thank you. Ms. Klaufstedt.
Hello. Living in Truckee these last 25 years and raising my family here has been a dream come true. But serving as your mayor and your council member has been the honor of a lifetime. Creating the best future for our community requires the highest level of public service. That's why my commitment to Truckee is not limited to council meetings. My newsletter is curated for the Truckee community to increase government transparency and encourage community involvement. I respond to your public comments because your effort deserves to be acknowledged. I've proven myself to be a prepared, informed, and inclusive decision maker. I look forward to sharing with all of you some of my aspirations for our community tonight.
Thank you. And that brings us to our question and answer portion of the forum. Remember to please keep your answers to 1 minute or less. And Ms. Tarnay, you will answer first on the first question.
You're all familiar with the dais, so hopefully tonight's not too scary for you. And Ted, I was wondering, as a former council member, if you wanted to join them just for old time's sake?
No, I'm actually perfectly happy right here.
While Truckee has remained relatively safe from wildfires, fires have hit surrounding communities, and keeping the town safe is top of mind for leaders. If Measure V passes, how would you prioritize use of the dollars allocated to the town? And if it doesn't pass, what other ways can the council help protect the town?
That's far too long for 1 minute. If Measure V passes, so we need to focus on restoring our fire-resistant forest structure. We need to focus on scientifically sound ladder fuel removal and creating an open canopy. And then we need to preserve our mature fire-resistant trees. That is also for heat mitigation, carbon sequestration, and traffic calming. Then I would like to focus on home hardening, roofing materials, even closure screen size. Those are, if Measure V doesn't, well, if those are all things that we need to do whether Measure V passes or not. We could use Measure T funds for those as well.
Thank you. Mr. Zabriskie.
There are two urgent things that need to be done, and Measure T begins to cover them. If we were given the Measure V funds, if Measure V were to pass, we would want to complement the fuel reduction in the order of priority which our local fire district has determined, and then we would also want to increase the public education on fire prevention, defensible space, and evacuation. We're way underinformed on being prepared for evacuation. So I see the fuel reduction priority being followed, and then evacuation education.
Thank you. Ms. Klofstad.
This is an issue I'm incredibly passionate about. I led my first campaign on forest health management and fuels reduction. And I agree with the list of action items for Measure V should it pass. And I believe that our biggest opportunity here would be to leverage those funds with both Measure T and other state and federal fundings that are coming our way. Additionally, on top of what Councilmember Zabriskie and Commissioner Tarnay mentioned, I think we would also want to look at ways that we can combine these forces and create fuel reduction measures within our community and using those fuels for things like biomass and other efforts. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Pallavi.
I concur with what has been said before me by Councilmember Zabriskie and Klofstad. Those are, should Measure V pass, leveraging those funds is going to be to Truckee's biggest advantage. We have a significant amount of state and federal land surrounding our communities, and in my opinion, those partners should be taking care of their lands, and Measure V funds would be able to be used to do matching funds, both at the federal and state level, to take part in that. I think protecting our communities would be most important, and making sure that the halo effect or the WUI right around our built communities are prioritized. Should Measure V not pass, and I am on the record and I'm not a supporter of Measure V, I believe we can either do better here in Truckee if the voters and community wish to do so. We will then have the capacity for our own sales tax, which is actually directed toward the intended purposes and not funneled through the general fund, and I would support the town going its own way.
Sorry, but time has expired. Next question, and we will begin with Mr. Zabriskie.
The council has implemented several housing projects, but there is still a huge shortfall in housing options for low and middle income earners. What other housing solutions can the council implement to solve this problem?
Right now, we have 3 new programs that are directed at different kinds of housing. We have the Lease to Locals to help renters. That's a subsidy of up to $18,000 a year. We have a Home Access Program, which will subsidize housing up to the amount of $150,000 for each homeowner who qualifies. That would create a limitation on the use of the property. And then we have an ADU program, which is to expedite this construction of accessory dwelling units, which would be affordable housing by design. That does not come close. The next major thing is the town is working to develop its own program to work in partnership with private developers to provide additional housing on top of those programs.
Thank you. Ms. Klofstad.
Well, thank you, Councilmember Zabriskie, for outlining all of those. This has been a top town council priority. And right after being elected, Councilmember Pallavi and I supported dedicating $2 million to create solutions for this community. Then we hired a full-time housing coordinator, and next we passed Measure K, which funds directly, is sustainable funding for our housing programs that Councilmember Zabriskie just outlined. Recently, we also dedicated $2 million of our ARPA funding to focus on this private-public partnership. And I feel all of these programs are going to enhance our community character, support our environment, and preserve our heritage. And I hope our community can support these programs as well.
Thank you. Mr. Pallavi.
Thank you. We have been laser focused on housing and for the last 4 years, and we will continue to do so. To focus on the low and middle income earners primarily, we're going, in my opinion, we should be further funding the programs that are in place, refining them so that our tax dollars are being used in absolutely the most efficient way, and to what everybody has already said, utilizing the town as either a landholder or a developer, but the biggest issue that we have is closing the gap. We need to close the gap, whether it's on land costs, whether it's on construction costs, or whether it's on the actual sale price of these units. So at some point in that process, there's going to have to be assistance inserted into the system. I believe that the town is most well equipped to do that. We should be doing that. And until our actual housing market comes back into balance, it's our absolute need to continue to do that to retain our employee base.
Thank you. And Ms. Tarnay.
Drop my pen. Thank you. The first thing I would like to do is have a clear definition for what we consider workforce housing. Currently, right now, it's on one of our websites as housing that you can only rent if you work within our school district, but there's no affordability component to that. I am meeting with the town lawyer next week to discuss a different equivalent alternative, so an alternative to providing the 15% affordable housing. I'd like to work that into some sort of workforce housing where you don't have to pay more than 25% of your income. The town is currently exploring legalities of using a town-wide area median income instead of a county-wide one. That would raise the eligibility level of workers here in town, and I think that's a wonderful idea. And then there's also the possibility of performing a study so that we can require more than 15% inclusionary housing. And I think that we should perform that because of...
My apologies, but time has expired. Question number 3, we will begin with Ms. Klofstad.
The council has discussed reducing greenhouse gases, but many of Truckee's workers commute from outside communities. Outside of addressing housing issues, how do you propose the town reduces greenhouse gases? How can you make public transportation accessible and appetizing to tourists and workers alike?
Oh, I'm thrilled with this question. Sustainability is key to the future of Truckee. It is not currently sustainable, in my belief. We need to evolve, and we need to evolve our transportation system and our infrastructure, as well as all of our buildings. Those are our biggest greenhouse gas emissions aside from transportation. So those two issues are my primary targets. There's been a lot of discussion in about reach codes in our community lately, and I want to assuage some concerns there. We're not going to take your gas lines away, but we are going to look for ways to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions in advance of the California Air Resources Board removing our opportunity to purchase gas furnaces and gas water heaters, and we want to support our community in doing that.
Thank you. Mr. Pallavi.
Thank you. Programs and education, those are the two ways we're going to do that. And first of all, we cannot separate our housing issues from our greenhouse gas emissions due to transportation and in or out commuting. They are intrinsically tied. We have those higher emissions, we have higher commute times because we can't house our workforce. There is no separating the two. With that said, microtransit, we ran a summer pilot project. This is sort of the new rural transit model. Instead of fixed route service going on a half an hour, hour-long basis in between rides, you now have the opportunity to have an on-demand ride between our neighborhoods, between our communities that is very much like a public version of Uber, or that might be what most are familiar with. Education is the other piece. I've been sitting on the Visit Tahoe Truckee board, Visit Truckee Tahoe board for the last 4 years. Education to our visitors and to our residents is going to be huge to adopt this new mode of transportation. So education and programs.
Expired.
Thank you.
Ms. Tarnay.
Great. I just want to throw out there, on-demand transportation creates at least 2 times the greenhouse gas emission of your own personal vehicle. It is not the solution to our greenhouse gas problems. I do agree housing solutions are climate solutions. That is first and foremost. After that, we're going to create denser development. We're going to get people out of their cars. We're going to focus on moving people, not just their cars. Let's see, we're going to create tempting spaces where people want to be. We're going to create safe, protected bike lanes plowed in the winter to allow for transport of the less confident bicyclist. We do not want to invest in more roads. More roads mean more cars, and we're running out of room to pave. And no one should ever have to wait more than 10 to 15 minutes for a bus. That was only 15 seconds. So we need to take some of that funds that we were going to put into expanding things for your personal vehicle and put it into our transportation program.
Thank you. Mr. Zabriskie.
I classify transportation use into 3 categories. We have the commuters, and then we have the visitors primarily from the Bay Area, and then commuters visit, and then our local workforce, those who work here. Certainly housing would help solve the commuter problem. The more people who can live here, who also work here, will save an extensive commute time. For those who still are going to be in Reno or in outlying areas, we should be looking at shuttles, the free ride home, which means when you go to work, you're guaranteed a ride back to where you came from. Apparently, that's a big impediment to people taking a shuttle. And there's 1,000 employees from the hospital here in Truckee, so we should look at that. And then train and transports from the Bay Area, getting visitors up here, need to look at that. Ran out of time.
Thank you.
I have some more to say.
And the next question, and we will start with Mr. Pallavi.
All 4 of you helped develop the 2040 general plan, and a large topic of conversation during the planning process was land use. Which pieces of the land use element were well done in your opinion, and what parts would you change?
Good one. I think the parts that were well done are primarily most of the land use alternatives for some of our neighborhood districts. So Donner Lake, West River Street, Glenshire, some of those types of areas, opening them up to a little bit more of a mixed use opportunity, allowing some commercial and residential and slightly higher densities is going to provide services to those areas, much needed services. It's going to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions. So we're going to reduce the need to increase our trips all throughout this wonderful and quite large town. Some of the places I think we could do better, I think our economic development element and roadmap could be improved, and that's going to be coming back to us in the next, on Tuesday, in addition to some of the densities on Donner Pass Road and Gateway. We can't put everything all in one place. Everybody sharing in the impacts, I think, is a little bit better than putting them all in one place.
Thank you,
Shocking.
Very, very good. Ms. Tarnay.
Okay, so my take home with this question is what pieces of the land use is well done. Is that correct? Okay. am a big fan of actually densifying our gateway area. It is walkable, bikeable to the hospital, to the grocery stores, to most of the schools in that area. This is the place to get some density because then we can have public transit running on a much shorter headway. Places that need change. I'm not a big fan of putting seniors up on the Upper MacGyver Dairy property. I feel like that isolates them. It's too steep a hill for them to walk up and walk down. It is right next to the highway. There's not very good air quality at that point. Yes, okay. And I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Zabriskie.
Well, our land use plan only provides changes for 3% of our total land area. And the jury's still out on what we're going to finally decide. The policies we have in place for housing are all going in the right direction. They're aspirational. And they're aspirational in the sense of we're going to keep all our open space, no net loss of open space. We're going to try and maximize open space where there's going to be private development that's already been designated. But the plan also tends to keep us from going up or out, while it also calls for us to build more housing. So we need to look at that more closely and focus on the density. That's where the controversy is on Gateway. That has yet to be resolved. And I can't cover it in one second.
Ms. Klofstad.
Councilmember Zabriskie and I have attended over 55 public meetings on the general plan update alone. So this has been a very long and detailed process, and it's been designing by committee, and we all know how that goes. It requires compromise. It's not perfect. It's not going to satisfy everybody's needs and expectations. We are going to relook at the densities on Donner Pass Road because that has provided some significant angst in our community. The other areas where I really feel like we haven't finished our work is finding industrial to help us incentivize getting that industrial activity off of our river so that we can revitalize our river and connect it back to the community. Otherwise, I think our general plan has been a really exhaustive and intense process where we accomplished a lot and have just a little bit more to go to get those actions going for the community. Thank you.
Thank you. And the next question, we will start with Ms. Tarnay.
Much like Lake Tahoe, Donner Lake has experienced increased usage and is in danger of being loved to death. How would you help protect Donner Lake while continuing to hold it up as an asset to the community and to visitors?
I love this question. So most of what is causing the damage at Donner Lake is the parking along the side there. So if we can move to a shorter headway, if we can get that 10 to 15 minute bus running from all over town to drop off visitors there, we can still maintain the same amount of tourist usage, but lower our impact drastically. We've already talked about this, and this has already happened, where they placed rocks along the road to prevent some of the parking there. It does put a certain amount of a cap on the usage there. So there's a certain amount of parking already at the state park. They did not want to expand that by having more along the road, and I appreciate that the town council at the time respected that. So I would like to move away from considering cars as usage and consider people as usage.
Thank you. Mr. Zabriskie.
Well, fortunately, the town is now participating in a newly created entity called the Donner Lake Partnership Stewardship to look at all of the problems affecting the water quality at Donner Lake. Donner Lake is a jewel that's been overlooked with all the emphasis on Lake Tahoe. It deserves equal protection. We need to make sure we keep the quagga mussel out, the zebra mussel out, and the aquatic invasive plants out. Roadway activity is another issue. There's the wave action on the shoreline. It'd be great if we can set up a shuttle system. We need to find a parking space at the entrance on the east side of Donner Lake where people can park and get on the trolley. And those are just some of the things we can do to improve Donner Lake.
Thank you. Ms. Klofstad.
I love the community member that asked this question. It has been a passion of mine to help our community really focus on the jewel that Donner Lake is. And it truly is being loved to death. So one of the first things I did on council was start talking about prioritizing this. And fortunately, the Truckee River Watershed Council caught wind of this and developed the DIPS, or Dippers, with this new organization. And they are really looking holistically, including combining with the Clean Up the Lake group that is now doing their second round through Donner Lake. And I am so thrilled that the town council was able to support this effort financially. And we have put in our capital improvement project list a set aside for Donner Lake improvements and preservation. And I look forward to putting that into action too.
Thank you. Mr. Pallavi.
Councilmember Klofstad nailed it. We've been working on Donner Lake. It's been a priority. We, as council members, have been partners in funding of both Clean Up the Lake to do their part. We have been a founding partner with the DIPS partnership with the Watershed Council leading it. These are incredible programmatic changes and opportunities that we as a town help to facilitate. In addition, we've been working on the infrastructure, as Ms. Tarnay said, at the entrance to the state park. We've been making improvements there. And at the end of the day, the aquatic invasive species program does need to come back. There needs to be a screening program, and it needs to be personed on a regular basis throughout the summertime in order to be effective. And that's going to be one of our most effective ways to actually save the lake or crown it a jewel, whatever we're going to do. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we will move toward your 2-minute closing statements. Each candidate will have 2 minutes. That'll seem like a lifetime compared to the 1 minute you were allotted for answering questions. And we will begin with Mr. Zabriskie.
Thank you all for being here tonight, and thank you for those who are watching from your homes. Since I joined the council, and despite the pandemic and our other challenges, the town has created and begun implementing multiple programs to improve housing, public transportation, wildfire safety, and community cohesion. They run the gamut from the Lease to Locals program to waste reduction and expansion of our police force. I'm running for re-election in order to implement these programs and find ways to strengthen our community, make our environment healthier, and improve public safety. My professional experience as a research scientist and a lawyer has helped prepare me for this task. They have taught me the importance of facts and collaboration in reaching decisions. I will continue to rely on these skills as we move down this path. Policies and goals for the future include greater environmental protection for our river and Donner Lake, transportation plans to reduce traffic and parking demand, strategies for economic diversification, and a host of infrastructure improvements that include a bigger and better library. Our efforts are directed at creating a more connected community within our Sierra wilderness. To achieve our goals, we must work with our community service organizations and public agencies. Organizations like the Community Foundation, Latina Fuerza, Visit Truckee Tahoe, and scores more are more integral to our town character and our future. Let's help them thrive. I realize this is a tall order, but we have a good foundation and inspiration from when the town incorporated 29 years ago. Let's stay engaged, keep working. Your vote will help me do so. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Ms. Klofstad.
I'm running again to complete what I started and to provide the community with consistent leadership no matter what the challenge. I support a sustainable, resilient, and strong Truckee that provides exceptional core services to its community. This is what I've worked so hard for over the last 4 years. The last 20 years I've spent as a public servant for the Tahoe Truckee Unified School District and now the Tahoe City PUD, where I've managed over $200 million of construction in our region. I've worked with all of the special districts and agencies and will continue to do so on Truckee's behalf. As the Sustainability Director for TTUSD, I understood what it took for an agency to understand to implement a program like that. I realized then what we needed was for all of our agencies to transform into sustainable institutions. This was my inspiration in creating the Climate Transformation Alliance. We now have over 30 businesses, agencies, and nonprofits that are sharing policies, programs, projects, and practices to help our entire region become sustainable. I'm really proud of this. But our work at CTA has just begun. I'm also really proud of all of my over 250 endorsements. All of these people I have worked with personally to advance Truckee's interests. I am ready to continue my service to Truckee with the principles of decisive action, ethical practices, and environmental stewardship. Visit my website at annafortruckee.com. I will ask for your vote and look for me first at the bottom of the ballot and the last one.
Thank you. Mr. Pallavi.
As mayor in 2020, I truly realized what being an elected official was all about. Our community needed leadership, we needed calming, we needed direction, and above all, we needed a strong, decisive path for navigating what was unknown to us all. I fielded countless constituent inquiries, cooperated with local, regional, and national media, and still stayed focused on the actual issues facing Truckee. I've done my best to lead with empathy, concern, sensitivity, and above all, clear and concise decision-making. This was also a time of internal challenge for the town. Both our town manager and police chief resigned within months of each other. As a council, we acted thoughtfully but swiftly to fill these voids. As a town council member for the last 4 years, I've championed strong housing policies, sustainable tourism actions, smart growth principles, and fiscal responsibility. Through our aggressive but conservative budgeting processes, we were able to hire 2 new police officers this year, a first in the town's 20-plus year history. My passion for the outdoors reflects Truckee's core values and vision. My record is clear, and I will continue to advocate for these important principles. What stands me apart from everybody up here and everybody on our existing council is I'm a business owner, I'm responsible for a payroll, and I've successfully navigated the building department for 2 building permits in the last 4 years. That's something no other council members nor candidates have done nor are responsible for. I appreciate your vote and consider it an honor to serve the town of Truckee and hope to continue in this role for the next 4 years. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Tarnay.
Thank you. I'd just like to end up with a little bit of history here. I've been part of this community since the 90s. It was a lot colder then, even in the summer. 20 years ago, I was able to purchase a house here, but these days, even my husband and I combined could not come close. I understand the struggle. I am part of the workforce, but I have the education and the background for this office. I have an undergraduate degree in mathematics. I have a master's degree in civil and environmental engineering. I'm currently the vice chair of the Planning Commission, and I have 7 years in construction project management, which included payroll. I put my money where my mouth is. I believe in public transit so much that I recently earned my Class B commercial license, and I am now driving possibly some of your children or grandchildren to and from school. Additionally, I generally e-bike to work at dark 30 in the morning. I am proactively pursuing creative solutions to climate challenges, workforce housing struggles, traffic issues, and wildfire concerns. I cannot wait to be a larger part of the discussion and to bring your concerns to the table with me. There is so much that we can do together. So come visit me tomorrow at the Poorhouse downtown at 6 p.m. We are having a fundraiser, wine, sip, and chat. Endorse my campaign at susiefortruckee.com right here. And hopefully you share the same vision of a sustainable future and vote for Susie. Thank you.
Thank you. On behalf of our sponsors this evening and those that are in attendance, I'd like to thank each of you with your various roles with the town. You're well informed, and I want the folks at home to know when you're the fourth one to go on the same question and it's all been said, it's a great challenge, and I honor you. You each did really a wonderful job. So thank you. Let's give them a round of applause. And again, there will be 3 open seats for the Truckee Town Council. You may vote for 3 on your ballot. Thank you to the Sierra Sun Moonshine Inc. and Tahoe Truckee Media and our sponsors, the Contractors Association of Truckee Tahoe PAC and the Tahoe Sierra Board of Realtors and the Truckee Chamber of Commerce. This program and the forum held Tuesday night will be repeated numerous times throughout the election season. Consult www.tahoetruckeemedia.org for dates and times of the rebroadcasts. This concludes tonight's program. Thank you very much for being here, and remember to register and to vote on November 8th. Thank you.